the watch page that I sent you previously. Don't use the second link, or else
don't link everybody.
Or else all these people will be in here with us.
Right.
Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds, and today I'm joined by EvilSqueegee, who I stumbled across on the interwebs on your YouTube channel, and I was telling you just before we got started. I was sad when I saw how many subs you had because your production value was so good. So I was just like, I should have this guy on and we should chat. And then when I went back and looked, you picked up like 400 subs, so that was pretty awesome.
I was briefly in the gaze of the Nerdarchy community, and I just grew 3 sizes.
Like a Grinch.
Yeah.
Like a YouTube Grinch.
Well, they don't call me evil for nothing.
Yeah. So that's a good question though. How did you come by the moniker of EvilSqueegee?
You may have noticed that the name EvilSqueegee has that late 90s, early 2000s teenagers AIM handle ring to it.
Yeah.
That's because it's a late 90s, early 2000s teenagers AIM handle. I was so fed up with a bunch of my friends at the time. They got sucked into this whole I'm so random fad that was going around kids at the time, and they were obsessed with the idea that they were random. And being the teenager I was, I took umbrage with this because they were not truly random at all. And so I decided to be actually random, and I flipped the dictionary open twice for my username. And EvilSqueegee is what popped out.
I'll show you fuckers what random means.
that was teenage EvilSqueegee deciding that he was going to show somebody on the internet that they were wrong, and that was the first time that happened.
Yeah, I was telling my son, I'm like, yeah, today's guest is EvilSqueegee. He's like the thing you clean stuff with. Like,
props for knowing what a squeegee is. Like, I had to look it up.
Well, in my previous life, I used to have to use squeegees for various things. We would use a squeegee. We'd create a puddle of this like poly tar. It was like 400 degrees, and then squeegee it into cracks and stuff.
Right.
Good times. I wonder if that makes it an EvilSqueegee or not.
I like to think of the evil in the EvilSqueegees. It's the residual effect of having been a dungeon master for so long.
Sorry, I was looking at the chat a little bit, and they're talking about once you've begun a fight on the internet thinking you can win, you've already lost.
Right? I'm trying to find the. Oh, okay, here we go. I'm trying to find there he is. I think I have the chat now. Excellent. Like 17 echoes.
Yeah, that could very well happen if you're not quick with the mute. So
there we go.
You've been streaming for a couple years now. You said pretty much forever. For as long as you can remember, you've been streaming. You've been streaming before there was Twitch.
Yeah, I was doing like as just screwing around live content making. It was my first game was when Saints Row 2 was new. That was when I was that's when I was streaming. It was on and off for a good long while. I put together a group of people for a while. We called ourselves Herpaderp Gaming back on livestreams.us, I think was the site. We had 18 to 24 hours of uptime on our content because we had a team of 18 people that were using the same feed to stream with. And we played all kinds of stuff. We played everything from like old school video games to Minesweeper. I once streamed a virus scan. We had a lot of Minesweeper. Like Minesweeper was actually the highest viewer count we ever had in that team. For some reason I will never understand. And then I started taking it seriously about two and a half years ago. When my friend who streams, he does a daily stream for Final Fantasy 14. I was playing Final Fantasy 14 with him, and I was on a stream and started to miss doing the content. So I started my own daily stream until I burned out on the game and started running D&D games instead.
Nice.
And I just kind of haven't looked back.
So how long have you been doing D&D games?
How long have I been playing D&D or creating D&D content?
Creating D&D content, whichever.
I've been doing D&D content for about a year or so. It started because we were in the middle of a raid. In the middle of an MMO raid, I found the rules to the actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf micro RPG and just sprung it on the people in the raid who had never played any tabletop before in their life. And before they knew what was happening, one of them was playing a ditzy cheerleader, somebody was the ditzy cheerleader's mom, and somebody was the bad boy boyfriend. And we were going through a really bad slasher flick with Shia LaBeouf Cannibal being our bad guy while we were waiting between polls and stuff. And
so you did an impromptu D&D game or RPG game in the middle of waiting for the raid.
Yeah, in the middle of in between polls of Savage Alex 1, I think was the raid for anybody who happens to play it.
So was that streamed or was that just something you were doing?
Well, that was streamed. We streamed all of our raids at the time. So how was that
received?
People seemed to enjoy it. I had a bunch of nerds in my chat at the time. I quickly whipped up a bot. I quickly coded. I used DeepBot, and with their custom commands, I set up a D6, and that's the only thing you need to roll in the game. So I was like just on the fly in the middle of tanking and everything. It was fun.
That's a great story. So I wonder how many of those people were actually RPGers or tabletoppers anyway.
Most of the people that I run with are really new. Like I've got a couple of my old worker from games I've run for years that play with me, but a huge majority of the people that hang out in my chat and watch my show are new, and oftentimes they don't know about it until I'm talking about it.
Now, the thing that I can't believe is this chat that you've started about Minesweeper. they're just going off on Minesweeper now. Great. So are you doing campaigns? Do you do one shots? Do you do a mix?
So right now, like as of this moment, what I've got going is we've got a Deadlands Classic campaign that's on hold, and we're looking to get that started up again soon. We've got a D&D 5th edition Out of the Abyss campaign, or what used to be an Out of the Abyss campaign until the player characters hit. And that we're restructuring that because a couple of the players got jobs and schedules and things. And then I've got a Dungeon World campaign that I run either Wednesdays or Thursdays, depending on the week. And somewhere in the middle of all that, that was supposed to be just a one-shot. But then the players liked what had happened so much they turned it into a campaign, and it's just taken off. But the idea was a one-shot. And then I've also got a very homebrew-heavy, very Diablo 1 inspired, high fatality rate 5th edition game, Everdeep, that I run. It's very grim, dark, goth, gritty. It's like Darkest Dungeons gone D&D. And it's all very one-shot heavy, and I'm looking to get that up and running again.
Have you had to modify much to make it gritty and dark and actually make death stick?
So I went overboard, and I have pushed the 5th edition balance to the extreme. And I now know at what point you have pushed too far into the challenge rating gap, and how important it is to have healers. Namely, in the universe that we're in, healing magic was lost. So there are no healers. And I push 5th level parties into fights with CR9 monsters, and the parties occasionally win. Well, they occasionally die is a better way to put it.
Nice.
But I build people their characters. I give them an unfinished backstory, like some sort of unresolved conflict or some mystery to solve. And then as they go through, if they live long enough, they'll pick up gold, they'll gain experience, etc. And they get what I call key items, where I advance their backstory and reveal something about their story. And to date, we have had 2 players out of the 25 players that have survived all the way to the end of their story at 5 milestones.
Nice.
I keep a good record. We got a graveyard. I keep a record. It's a lot of fun. It was not easy to make 5th lethal, though. That was I had to tinker with what was available, and then I also had to, after nixing healing and a lot of the defensive stuff, I also had to be very cautious and wary about how easy I was going to make an encounter. What I'll do a lot of the times, I'll take a CR9 monster, and I'll split it into 2 bodies. Each one gets half health. Between the 2 of them, they have a singular action economy. and I just let them run rampant like that. And that way you get effectively a CR9 encounter with multiple enemies to create more tactical depth. And that's only killed everybody once, and that wasn't my fault. We had in that one party, we had some of the worst dice I've ever seen. We had players. We opened the fight with somebody at 1 HP because somebody else triggered a trap on their buddy. And then I just watched time after time after time as the players just refused to notice or acknowledge that they could have choke pointed, pulled out for a better tactical position.
Is that the impetus for some of your videos?
I do. So I have a big background in like World of Darkness and a lot of the more like narratively focused games. And the communities that I did a lot of role playing in, they like as soon as you start thinking mechanics or tactics or optimization, they freak out like you are somehow undermining the game or you know you're being poisonous to it. Whereas
fun is wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's actually my Facebook image right now. My profile picture is your fun is wrong. Whereas I really do embrace the tactical teamwork aspect of the math and the optimization as a GM. And I look for places where the gameplay and the story, they don't just go side by side, but they're actually one and the same and they intermingle. And that's really difficult to do when most of your players haven't been playing D&D for 17 years. They've been at it for 6 months and they don't know any of this stuff. And they're just now learning things like you should probably let the rogue scout ahead.
It's true. It's true. There is a bit of a learning curve. Yeah, people sometimes forget that there's like 3 letters in that in what we do, RPG, and they want to just look at one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So
and it's fine if you know your group is about one and doesn't have an interest in the other. Thumbs up. Like always run your game the way your table should run it. But the internet is full of people who believe that your fun is wrong.
Unfortunately, that is true. So what are you going to do? You know, like we give a lot of advice and talk about a lot of stuff, but we usually end it with like whatever you want to do at your table. If you guys are having fun, as long as that group that you are gaming with can all come to a consensus, you're golden. It doesn't really matter.
I can go on for hours and hours and hours and hours about how to do XYZ, like how to build a campaign, what makes a good NPC, blah 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 blah. But I'm just explaining how I accomplish those things and why I do it that way and what it is I'm trying to get done. So if you want to do it the way that I do it, sure, I'll tell you the best way to do that. But that's not going to be the best way to run the game because there is no real best way to run the game.
There's been a request for what does your shirt say?
My shirt says, classically trained, dad joke you. It's got a picture of a train in the middle.
It does. It does. Are you a dad?
No.
Get him ready.
I'm training, as you can see.
Nice.
I'm training for it.
I over practice and ended up with 2 kids. It happens. Get out there, guys. Be careful.
It starts with puns. It starts with puns and deliberate misinterpretations, and the next thing you know, kids.
They start sprouting.
They just start growing.
Awesome. So yeah. So what are your favorite kind of videos to do, and like what made you decide to go from pretty much streaming D&D to actually creating other content as well? Because it seems like that's newer for you.
Yeah, the YouTube is definitely the new thing for me because I do mostly live content. So it started with I was doing a daily stream, and there were periods in time where I was GMing, preparing, running, executing, filming, and producing 8 shows a week, and they were all games. There were 8 different campaigns going on at the same time, and that was too much. Don't do that. That was a bad idea.
It doesn't actually sound fun at a certain point.
There is a certain point where it becomes no longer fun, and so I decided I needed to cut back on the gameplay streams because I could not support 8 a week. I'm now, ironically, running 7 a week, but I'm only putting 3 of those on stream. I've got 4 games elsewhere. Some of them play by post. Some of them I run a bi-weekly game at a friend's house, and those aren't the same ordeal, especially since I refuse to play systems on my access stuff that require a lot of prep. But so I had all these extra days in the week open because I was still keeping the stream streak going, and I started to do prep streams. I would do mapping streams. Like I've got a guy who does a lot of the maps for my game shows. If you go back and you look at like my Hellmouth footage or my Deadlands footage, we have these absolutely gorgeous maps, and they are built 100% in Roll20 because my mother was an art teacher, so I was explaining one day on stream how, you know, the basic principles that I think go into a good looking map, and somebody was like, "Oh, that seems interesting," and he slapped them together, and I was like, "Yoink!" The moment I saw what he was doing, I was like, "You work for me now." But so I was doing all this explaining stuff, and don't get me wrong, I could talk about D&D forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. But a lot of that would be me repeating myself. And so I figured YouTube would be a good way to, you know, have that video up. So when somebody comes in and says, what about choke points? I've got my whole ramble about choke points. Boom, there's a link. And that was why I started doing it. As for what my favorite things to do on stream are, it's a toss-up. I really like the Dungeon World streams are probably some of my favorite games, specifically for streaming, because that system is there is no prep. You have no idea what's going on, and you're kind of like in the moment. And if you have the right cast of players to bounce off of, you mix the chat into that, and you get this really beautiful kind of experience that you can't have anywhere else. It's either that, or I've just started doing let's all build a campaign together with chat streams, and we're currently working on like a Victorian vampire game and a Shadowrun campaign that the chat is helping me build as we go along. And those are way more fun than I thought they were going to be, actually.
You know, anytime, you know, the collaboration stuff can be a lot of fun. Although doing anything by committee can also have its own problems.
Yeah, so I do, like, I've got a format that I use to try and draw the ideas that I like to keep a cohesive whole going, and I'm maintaining creative control over what's happening, right? But I'm crowdsourcing most of my ideas and bouncing stuff off back and forth. But even while we're gaming, the chat gets involved. Like my small community that I've got, they bought me my whole computer rig, the camera, the microphone, everything you've got now, my stream community paid for over the years that I've been doing it. And I decided eventually I didn't feel like I was doing enough for that level of donation and generosity. So I decided that for every donation that came in, I would let the person who donated inflict crits and botches on my players. And so our audience gets involved in the way the dice play out at the table. And so you get that kind of collaboration. Like sometimes like Chris Kajer, he'll sass the wrong person in chat, and they will turn out to have some spare change, and he will do nothing well for the rest of the session. It's a lot of fun.
Sounds like. But now you've done it there. Now they want us to play Shadowrun.
Oh, Shadowrun is so good. If it's gonna be easier for you, I could link you to the Powered by the Apocalypse hack for Shadow World.
Oh, nice. You know what? We did our own hack. We used Cypher System and played Shadowrun.
Oh, I haven't had the chance to try Cypher yet. I've wanted to.
And then our GM was so excited when he saw other people were using the Apocalypse engine to run Shadow. He's like, so it reconfirmed that we were right. Shadowrun is awesome, but the game mechanics suck.
Fifth edition is really, like, if you're the kind of person who has any taste for crunch, 5th edition is the only system that has crunch that I can really respect the crunch for anymore. Like, having moved from 3rd edition D&D to 5th, because I didn't get the chance to try 4th, I look at most of what goes on in Mathfinder and 3rd as a system, and it's just mind-bogglingly abstract. Whereas in 5th edition, they've got in 5th edition for Shadowrun, they've got their core mechanics kind of streamlined to the point where it's easy to pick up and put down, and all of the complexity and all of the crunch is just a literal interpretation of what would be happening in the game world. It's this, they do a very good job of keeping that simulative thread through their rule system, and I actually really like it.
Cool. Yeah, I would definitely check it out. This is breaking balls more than anything.
Oh, yeah. Like, when you do check it out, see if you can find something other than the official book to explain any of it to you, because it's the worst organized book I have ever encountered in my life.
YouTubes. Go to the YouTubes.
Yep.
I'm sure it's out there.
Wikipedia that. Don't read it from the book. The last place you want to learn Shadowrun from is the book.
Nice. Yeah, you know, as I get older, I just prefer rules light. Like, give me like Fate Accelerated.
I've come to that conclusion as well. Like, I feel like my strength as a GM is in the moment with the adjudication and the improvisation of what's happening right now, and all of the mechanics, they'll get in the way just by being there sometimes. And it's not like, you know, my players are forcing me to abide by the rules, or like we all care if I ignore the rule here or there. But even in D&D, like I've occasionally, you know, I'll ask for like weird combinations of skill and stat because I've got this very free flow approach to it all.
Yeah, I recently did that. Someone wanted to blend into the crowd, so I was like, all right, give me a stealth check with your charisma.
Oh man, so Kyle Ellis in chat says he's nervous of playing in Shadowrun or running it because he's very tech illiterate. It's worse if you're tech literate. It's way worse if you actually know anything about the tech.
You're like, it doesn't even work like this. This is such bullshit.
It's an alternate timeline, right? That started like it's future tech if 80s retro tech was the break point. So like for like 5th edition is the first book that actually talks about cell phones. Because where they were going from when they wrote the book, when they wrote the game world, that wasn't a thing. And so like the deckers, the hackers, they get this special deck that they type on. It has no monitor. It's just a keyboard. It's not a mouse. It's not like it's a keyboard on your arm. Like, so if you actually know anything about the tech, it's way more confusing than if you don't.
So what I'm hearing is you're better off.
Yeah, no, you are in a better position than I was to learn it.
Or you know, the idea of actually plugging things in.
Right?
Yeah, well, you know, like you said, it's a holdover from the 80s when, you know, when Shadowrun first came on the scene. Halfway when. So it's not wrong with that.
No, so it's great. I like it.
How many different games are you guys streaming over there?
Okay, so I'm currently streaming Deadlands, D&D 5th, Dungeon World. We have wrapped up our Werewolf the Forsaken game. It was like a 12-episode campaign. And I ravenously enjoy jumping in and trying a new system. And then finding out half the time that the system is not at all what I need it to be. But I'll try anything. Occasionally we do one of our favorite things is to play Lasers and Feelings. I think it's a John Harper game, if you're not familiar.
Okay.
And it's a spoof on like Star Trek style sci-fi. And it's very, very simple, very conversational and improvisational. And the way that my community plays it is it's Mystery Science Theater levels of absolute zaniness nonstop. It's sci-fi ridiculousness, and that was the game that inspired us to. We have what we call the laugh track system, where if you make somebody else laugh, you get a point. Or what we did eventually was if you laugh, you lose a point.
And what do these points do?
The highest score at the end of the game usually winds up getting a bonus in the next one shot or something I'll run. But it attracts these players that are very good at straight-faced humor. And so you lose track of everything that's going on at the table because you're just trying not to laugh because somebody found that perfect one-liner, right? But I've also got... I'm planning on starting a stream where I'm going to be building a homebrew system from the ground up. I've got a couple of ideas I want to tinker with there. And we've got oodles of one-shots with oodles of systems.
So primarily, where are you pulling your players from?
So what'll happen is for the stream games, I generally don't pull somebody into a stream game unless I've hung out with them and gotten to know them a little bit. So I draw from my community. I run a Discord server where we all hang out. But I find people on Instagram. I find people on Twitter. I find people who will just like come into the show or comment on YouTube or whatever. I will literally play with anybody at least once. So like if there's a place to go looking for players that I don't know of yet, I'd like to know.
So I'm picturing you in safari gear now.
Right, with the hat and the straw, right?
That's it.
Crikey, looking for a player.
We did a video last Friday. It went up with Maze Arcana, and we were talking about like the different types of streaming out there, and like they're very like regimented. Like they don't even want interaction with the chat. They just want to play their game and have people watch. You know, as to where then like like I know I think the C team encounter role play, and you've even mentioned it where it's like full on, and
boss. Oh yeah, like they have milestones where the chat will literally jump in and decide what happens next. Yeah.
We've even run. We do a Marvel phase rip game, and the GM is like, "All right, guys, get out your percentile dice. You know, you guys get to play the mooks. Just tell me what you're doing in the chat." And
oh man, oh that's an idea. I'd have to find a way around the stream delay, but that sounds like that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you know what? We kind of just work with it, but so he kind of tries to put it out there sooner. I think the way to really do it is probably you guys would actually be better at, because we're a bunch of old guys trying to use technology, right? But like if you actually put it in the chat first, the chat is instantaneous.
Yep. You could do it in the chat first. You could also, I mean, like depending on what sort of boundaries you want to put for yourself in the formulas for your combat scenes. If the community is aware of what the combat scenes options are already, like who are the mooks going to focus? Is there going to be a big badass mook or a sneaky mook in the mix, right? If they know their stuff ahead of time, you could have them jumping in as well. What we'll do, and this is why I was like, stream delay is a thing. We have a system we call destiny tokens. So whereas people can inflict botches, crits, and stuff on players, on occasion there'll be something that in the system of the game doesn't have a stat or an action associated with it. Like in D&D, you got to roll for madness on occasion, right? Player has failed their saving throw or a wild magic surge. And what we'll do is somebody can spend one of their destiny tokens to choose what happens on that list, when it would have otherwise just been perfectly random. And we get a lot of random stuff. Like you get players who are like, you get people like they get really antsy. They're waiting. They can feel like somebody's going to make a madness roll. And they're all typing in chat, ready to go. And be like, me! Because it's whoever calls it first. And there are people who just cannot wait to screw over Chris's character. And then there are people who think that there are too many people trying to kill the party. And they super need this person to live. And you get like the chat breaks into factions and stuff. And they argue about what they need to do. It's a lot of fun.
It really, like, I guess like the discussion that we had was really about how like, how tabletop gaming really has changed because of the streaming. It's something completely new now, and there's no, the genie's out of the bottle. There's no going back, and it's funny because there's like different ways of enjoying and engaging with it. There's going to be the more purists, like, oh no, we're inviting you just to watch our game, and then there's going to be more like what you're doing, like, oh no, this is a free for all. Everybody get in here and mix it up, and then and there's everything in between that. So it's really an exciting time for the hobby, and it's really making it grow and expand.
And I'm super excited for that, because like when I first started dipping my toes into the streaming of D&D, that it wasn't really a thing yet. I think like I hadn't discovered you guys. I was aware of Critical Role. It Meet JP, I think, with role play was the only thing I knew of, and that was actually where I got the idea to do it. And since I've started doing it, I've seen it kind of really grow and flourish and be this thing that nobody really bats an eyelash at happening anymore. And watching what everybody else is doing with their stuff is really fascinating. Like Encounter Roleplay does some incredible stuff with the medium that I can't even touch, right? And it's put me in contact with so many people, and I've made friends, I've made enemies, good times and bad, like, and I'm super excited because on top of all of this, I don't know if it's still there, but for a solid like 3 or 4 months, the 5th edition core rulebooks were all 3 of them on the Amazon top 10 seller list. And nice. And whether or not 5th edition's popularity has led to a surge in popularity on content online or the other way around doesn't matter.
Chicken or the egg.
Chicken or egg, like who cares? we're fucking up a bunch of orcs, and that's badass. Like, more is always better in this case. And I am so hyped because I've been playing this game since 2000, actually. I still have my 3rd edition player's handbook from before the DMG or the Monster Manual was released. They have the 2000 survival guide in the back with some snippets and splashes and stuff. And it was not something that was people friendly at the time. And it is such a different world now. Like, nobody jumps out at you or like drags you down because you play D&D anymore. I mean, I got a double dose of it because back when I was starting playing, I was surrounded by people who hadn't quite put down the 80s rampage about like the Satanism and like the craziness that was going on back then.
Well, I got to live through it, but fortunately my parents were horrible, so it didn't really matter.
I was deep in Fundy Town. They hadn't quite put those torches or pitchforks down when I started playing. And it is night and day nowadays. Nowadays it's like you'll talk to people who don't play and they won't even bat an eyelash. You'll be like, yeah, I play D&D, and they'll want to talk Game of Thrones suddenly or whatever, right? Right,
and they know what it is. You can almost ask anywheres, and they've heard of Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm. And and no longer is it that weirdo thing you do in the basement. It's just it's a game that people play.
It was weird going out to LA and hanging out with everyone out there. I'm like, man, you guys are all just like D&D players, but so much better looking.
Yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of it is that, like, specifically with say Critical Role, a lot of them it's they've been playing D&D this whole time. They've never not played D&D. They've always been just better looking D&D nerds.
Yeah.
Right? It's just now people will pay attention to them while they're playing D&D. Like,
well, LA is kind of like a hotspot for it now, and there's a lot of groups there that are streaming there. They're playing live. They're streaming those games. So there is a decent amount of that. Like, I know of at least 3 of them. Critical Role, Maze Arcana, and Dragons and stuff. Which the Dragons and stuff is really interesting because they just stream to Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Facebook tapped the studio that's producing it, and that's how they're making that work.
Right.
But it's still kind of interesting. And well, even like Harmon Quest is out there too. We took, what did we do? We went to the Hollywood Walk and just took like the Man Chinese Theater tour, and the tour guide was like, oh, my, we were kind of talking about what we're doing. It's like, oh, my boyfriend works on the Dan Harmon show, or the Harmon Quest show. So it's like everywhere. Like you can't escape it, which is good. We're infiltrating the world. And it's nice too. Like, we did a fan hangout at a local game store, and we had all kinds of people showing up, all different ethnicities, different genders. And coming from my background of playing D&D, there wasn't that. Like, there never was that.
It was never that way. It was a game for the absolute deep end nerdy antisocials, basically. Like, we weren't the types of people that were out being normal, and now it is a normal people thing, and that is incredible and really encouraging. And it's I want to say it's nice to not be as alone in it anymore, but I've been pretending to be an elf, so it's not like being alone has been much of a problem. My elf was never alone, you see.
Nice. But it's a good place to be in. Hey guys, you want to give us the roll call? We're more than halfway through, so we might as well see where you people are chiming in from. So like I said, it's the best time ever to be in this industry and to be playing games, and to think that people are actually like making a living doing what we do, like professional streamers. This year I left my job to just basically come on here and talk to folks all day about D&D. And
you are a brave man. You are a brave man.
We'll see how it works out. I got my eye on a really sweet cardboard box from a refrigerator. But you know what? Though, like as soon as I left my job, like all kinds of opportunities started popping up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I mean, it's a time-consuming thing if you have the time to dedicate to it. Like for a while, before I moved out to New York, I was in a much more sustained position, let's say, and I had a lot less to worry about, and I could burn 68-hour weeks, and I could burn 70, 76-hour weeks. Just working on the stream, working on the game, working on the the graphics and the branding and everything, right? Pour your heart and soul, blood, sweat, tears, and botches everywhere. And then when I moved to New York, life became much more demanding, and I suddenly had a much more healthy respect for the amount of time that this can eat up if you let it.
Yeah. My wife will always ask, "Do you have any work to do?" I'm like, "When do I not have work to do?"
There's always work to do.
There's always something. It's like, do you mean is something on fire that needs to be put out right now? Maybe not, but there's always something going on. So let's see where the folks are chiming in from. We got Nordic Dragon in Delmarna, Sweden. We've got Evil Silly Putty in Minnesota, maybe a cousin of yours. Chris Lynn in Houston. AJ is in Lopez Island, Washington. We got Lincoln in Sweden. Eridaz, Houston. We've got Portsmouth, Ohio with Overmind, Australia with Tesmic, and we jumped. I knew that was going to happen. I felt it. We got Patrick Emelson in Sweden. So I think we got Sweden out of the way. We've got like 3 guys that tune in every day from Sweden. I
think we got Sweden out of the way. That's enough. That's enough.
Hey, there might be some more the merrier. Parrot from Saitama, Japan. Nice. Jason from Texas.
That's the other thing. While we're like looking at where all these people are from, like we are all currently like the way I heard it once phrased that I felt was really powerful was we're all in the same moment right now, right? Like we are all in the same moment. Yeah, we're using the computers to communicate. We're watching each other. We're hanging out and we're chatting, but there are a huge number of people right here who play.
Yes.
And one of the biggest things that I think has changed over the years of playing D&D is there's 50, 60 people. Boom. And I can find the group that works for me and for them at the time that works for all of us without being limited to the 3 people who know what D&D is that live, within a 2-hour car ride once a week.
That used to be the reality. We got in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
Wow.
So we got some Canada in the house. Video game play by Nerdarchy, South Jersey. That's Nate. Todd is in Dallas. Lawworthy is in London. We got Tyson in Vancouver. Zarif Gaming. Funny guy. Rio Docio. They're messing with me because they know I can't talk and say anything. We got Larry Brown, Nerdarchy Trucker, rolling through the OKC. We got Victor in Niagara Falls, New York. And we got you in New York City.
Yep.
We got Melbourne, freezing Melbourne, Australia with David Bliss. And got New Mexico with AJ. We got California house with David. I think I skipped a few, but that's all right. We got Sacramento in the house with
Saskatchewan.
Nah, Sacramento.
Oh no, Quith was just saying that Americans have trouble pronouncing Saskatchewan.
Oh yeah, I have.
Is that a thing?
Got Long Saddle in the house, wherever that is. But I have trouble pronouncing anything. So my brain can make the words, but not. I feel
like I grew up in Maine, and like the word Saskatchewan got used a lot in Maine. I don't know why per se. I couldn't tell you, but I'll tell you what. It's weird that I can say that. We have an on-running gag that there is nobody who can walk into my chat with a name that I won't somehow manage to screw up by the end of the show. My mouth just does whatever the hell it wants.
I feel your pain.
You think, like, being that we are, you know, people who play D&D for a living, basically, and D&D is a conversation, we effectively talk for a living, so you'd think we'd be able to talk, but no.
Yeah, no. You know, I used to read a lot, but when I would read and I would get to a word that I found impronounceable, my mind would just like create an image for that word, and I'd be like, all right, and then I'd just keep reading.
You know what the word meant. You don't even know how to pronounce it when you're reading it. Like,
yeah. Like, it wasn't important at the time. So, do you have any streams going on today?
Today, I have been actually undecided. I think I might do a campaign building stream later today. I might just roll out of this and into that. I just started. I just got some real life stuff back under control, so I just started picking up the daily streaming again. With the exception of giving myself 7 days a month off. And I spent one of my days
very
off.
Very generous to yourself, sir.
Yesterday. Well, you say that, but that was the minimum number of days I could squeeze my real responsibilities into. So, as at the risk of spending one of my days off when I shouldn't, I should probably do a stream today. Yeah.
So over mine, Matt Colville is going to be doing a campaign building stream later this week. So don't stream that day or during that time, or forget about it.
Right. There are a couple of people that when they go live, I know when they're live, because when I am live and they are live, I might as well not be live. Like,
just watch your numbers roll down.
Just like, you know, you'll be cruising, and it'll be that time slot that the Geek and Sundry fills, and I'll be like, yeah, boom, oh shit, like I know what that was. I felt that from over here.
Yeah, just Thursday night, just shut it down.
Yep. It's funny, because Thursday afternoon is when I do my Deadlands campaign.
Nice. So, actually, you might be able to answer this one, because it sounds like you had to mess with this in your game a little bit. But David Bliss had a question about how to play non-magical healer. Also, I think there's some stuff in that in the 5th edition Middle Earth book as well for that.
Non-magical healer? So the way it works in Everdeep is I just wrote out healing spells. Healing spells and light spells are just gone. What I do is I hand out potions very sparingly. The player, at the start of every mission, the players can go to the market, and there are a certain limited number of potions for sale at the start of every game, and it's randomized. I actually roll up to find out what's in the market every adventure. And these players will hoard these potions like they are the gold that they are, because the potion is one of the very few ways that you can snap somebody right back up out of a death save, because they get hit with the healing and they stand back up, no save necessary. From there, I have just found that 5th edition is so tightly balanced that you don't need healing. What healing will let you do is it'll let you go from encounter to encounter to encounter. It'll give you more encounters in an adventuring day. But if you're not tracking adventuring days, that part of the balance is irrelevant, and you're just as likely to overcome an encounter by dropping a healer and picking up another damage dealer. At least within the boundaries of the first 8 levels or so. I've tested that.
Yeah, I find we play a lot of like shorter games, and we don't do a ton of combats. Mm-hmm. So like our games actually benefit the other way. They benefit more from having a healer and less from those other things that kind of 5th edition is built around.
Right.
Because they don't get access to them. And also, like, so they might we might do like 1 or 2 encounters in a game, but like everyone will let it go nuclear because they just know they're probably not going to do anything else.
Like if you get a paladin in the group and they know that they're not going to have to save up for multiple encounters, that paladin's going to unload and he's going to be the most unbalanced thing at the table. Because X per day is one of the things that keeps those classes in check. But even then, like, you can take a 5th level party and throw it against a CR 9 creature, and you can be reasonably sure that if they play well, they'll survive. It's not something that I just willy-nilly do. Well, okay, that's a lie. I willy-nilly do that. But it was not something I willy-nilly did at first until I was more comfortable at how to play it out. And that's that was with no healer. Like, I was throwing them into deadly level encounters with no heals, and they were fine.
I find those like 2 pages of the DMG where it talks about XP budgets and encounter building. You literally light them on fire and no one will miss it.
I use them as a basis, but I use them as a basis. And that's part of that is because when, like, if you've seen any of the videos that I've done about encounter building, I put a lot more thought into in my encounters than just making certain the numbers add up. I consider the terrain. I consider how the whole thing plays up. I had for a while I was doing on Instagram, I was doing Monster of the Day, which was I would put together a small infographic every day about a monster from the 5th edition D&D for what I felt was a great way to put an encounter together for it. And the first thing I did was I tackled the troll. It's a classic, right? And the trolls, fire, check, done, right? Like, that's how the player characters approach it. So how do you make that interesting? Well, I mean, you could go down the shifty route of declaring they don't know they can use fire and letting your players sit there knowing what the answer is without being able to use it. Or you can just make fire not the best option by sticking your troll underwater. Or sticking your troll in a cave full of explosive gas. And I look to build encounters in ways that capitalize on the traits the monsters have, which means that I tend to shy away a lot from monsters that are nothing but just brutish beatsticks with no qualities or traits or unique abilities. And I go looking for ways to construct an encounter so that the monster's strength has a chance to shine. Preferably, if I can manage, I'd like to pit the monster's strength and their weakness to the players at once. For example, with kobolds. Kobolds, they swarm. They get advantage whenever one of their buddies is attacking. That's what they're supposed to be doing as far as their their core battle tactic goes. But they've got a weakness to sunlight. So what I like to do in that case is I'll design the encounter such that the players have the chance to consider moving into set up some exposure to sunlight, punch a hole through a window or in the ceiling or something. But in order to do so, they will need to expose themselves to the swarming tactics of the kobolds to pull it off. Or they can be clever, think outside the box, and get it done some other way that I hadn't anticipated. But by that point, I've got the players in a position where they're thinking, they're applying with what they've got, they're strategizing, and they're engaging with the combat. And at that point, the numbers don't really matter. Because, like, I learned that lesson. I was GMing for somebody who had a druid, and they prepared summon, and they summoned a hippogriff, and the hippogriff grappled a monster, and then just flew straight up until this duration wore out, and the monster fell, and it took some obscene amount of d6 damage that was not supposed to be allowed at that level of a spell, and I went, well, I can't. I mean, that's what would happen, and that's how the system would play it. So much for that challenge rating, I guess. And if your players are engaged and they're thinking and they're approaching it in more than just a walk up to monster, click attack button mentality, then you're right. Take the XP budgets and the CRs and light them on fire and just go.
Yeah, I find it's a bit more art than science. Like, my own methodology is I just look at, okay, what are the armor classes? What's the attack bonus? Like, I just kind of, I just eyeball things. It's like, oh, what is the max damage? Can that kill the wizard in one shot? All right, might be a little too strong. Yeah, so I tend to look at things like that or go, oh, well, there's going to be a bunch of these, and the party has fireball. That can backfire sometimes, too, because I used a swarm of Sturges. I'm like, the bard's got sleep. This should be a no-brainer. They almost died.
Sturges are some nasty stuff. If you're not careful, yeah. It's the other thing is that when I'm running a game, I'm very much hands off on whether or not the players succeed. I'll set up the challenge, and then the reason I can just toss out at the players and be like, well, you did this, and then this happens. Well, aren't you just screwed? And just hand out massive damage or harsh consequences for an action is because my players trust me to be fair and direct and logical and consistent because if they find something that completely shortcuts or short circuits my entire encounter, they shortcut or short circuit my entire encounter.
Those are the best though. Like the idea, like the DMs get really like hung up and stuck on the idea that like the players have to be appropriately challenged every encounter, so they'll resist that.
And it's the way I like to describe that is that they are conflating difficulty with challenge. You've challenged your players when they have to stop and think about it. It's difficult when they almost lose. And don't get me wrong, that nail-biting tension at the end of a really good boss fight where everything's on the line, 2 people are almost dead, the boss is almost out of health, and it's just a couple of saving throws and maybe one solid attack roll from being over for either side, that can be a lot of fun. But A, not every encounter needs to be that. And B, you can't make that happen. That will happen as a result of what goes on in the fight. And if you try and dig your heels in to make that happen, you will be invalidating player choices. You'll be stepping on toes. You'll be taking the spotlight off. You'll be, I've seen Dungeon Masters, they basically take their boss monster and turn it into the dreaded DMPC done badly problem, right? And it can go really badly. And the moment that you can just breathe and let go and let the players do stuff and let stuff happen as a result of them doing stuff without worrying about how difficult it was, you start getting into what I think is the real fun of it. Which I'm not even going to go down once you let go of challenge, you have a story. That's not where I'm headed with this. I'm headed down like all of your favorite war stories from D&D, right? Bingo. Like all those times where like I still have players who will hit me up and be like, do you remember that time that we took those zombies and strapped dynamite to them and just turned them around? Because they were zombie bombs. They were bombies. It was insane. It was awesome.
The infected turns. No. You're absolutely right, and actually that was the direction I was going to go into, because it is about the story, but it's not about the story in the game. It's about the stories that get told outside of the game, like even like you said, that tough fight where 2 players got dropped. Well, like that story won't even be told unless some interesting things happened in the process. If it was just you and the DM in a roll off and that happens, no one's going to talk about that. But that's why I just like I just let things unfold however they unfold, and you're gonna get stories like my player Ted, the other member of Nerdarchy. He still bitches about the time that this vampire myconid creature stomped him after he was. Because I'm like, well, yeah, but you hit him with the only thing that hurt him. You kept him from regenerating. You used radiant energy on him. Of course he hates you.
Yeah.
He only stomped once.
Yep. And it's those stories, the reason that is, because I gotta say, if there was one thing that I was gonna say sets me apart when it comes to GMing, I'm not satisfied with just saying, oh, that's what it is, that makes obvious sense, even when it just obviously makes sense. Like we can all just look at it and be like, yeah, when your players are telling war stories and those stories go on for years after the game, you've succeeded. And my question is, why is that a sign of success? What about that is the success? And the success is that's when your players are in the moment and they are telling stories about those moments because they had that much fun and they were that into it in that moment. And that's what you want in all things. You want into it, whether or not into it is, oh god, I hope that myconid vampire doesn't stomp me, or into it is, crying because you're laughing so hard because the player at the table who has the least business trying to play anything seductive is trying to seduce somebody to save the party, or or if it's a character just died and everybody just got smacked upside the face with how intense that was, right? And there's that moment of silence when everybody realizes that the prince is dead. They're all that same level of everything but the game has been obliterated in that moment. And that's what I really gun for pretty much all the time.
That's funny. They're talking about the StarCraft references in the chat because we had a video go up today. Apparently, I made StarCraft references in that video as well. But we shot that video like last week. So in the future, I have it on my mind.
I too am guilty of mixing references to my recent stuff. Like I just got back into the new Warcraft expansion, so I've been making WoW references left and right.
I have not video gamed in a very long time. I've gone cold turkey.
I don't know if I could do that, man.
I could. Well, I won't get anything else. For a little while, I dipped back and would play League of Legends, and I kind of like that because I could go in and I could play.
My condolences.
Yeah, I just I could go in and play a game and be done.
Yep.
And I thought it was funny having 12-year-olds that all did my mom, in the game.
Oh yeah, it's worse than Xbox Live.
But I haven't played anything in a long time just because everything is a time sink, and I'll be like, oh, I guess I'm not doing Nerdarchy or a job or a family or stuff.
Right.
I'll become that dude from the South Park WoW episode.
Right. Yep.
So
100 million boars, I think it was.
Yeah. Although that being said, when they came out with the newest version of StarCraft, I was really tempted. I really loved that game.
Oh, the HD remaster?
Yeah.
I'm definitely eyeballing it myself.
Yeah.
That was a good game. That was one of the few games my dad actually played that game.
I actually saw my wife bitch her way out of a TMF, back in the day. With the real-time strategy.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you'd get someone that would turn on you. Bitched at them so bad, they just stopped. They stepped back.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. So we're right around that time. We're getting ready to wrap this up. Final thoughts where people can find you. What's going on?
All right, so you guys can find me over at youtube.com/EvilSqueegee. That's my name with RAWR because some asshat who doesn't use his YouTube channel for the past 8 years has my name for some reason. You think with a name like EvilSqueegee. But no. You can find me at EvilSqueegee on YouTube. You can find me as EvilSqueegee on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. I go live on Twitch most every day now. At various times a day. Specifically, you can catch me at Wednesdays at 1, Thursdays at 1, and Saturdays at 10 a.m. EST, all times EST, because that's for EvilSqueegee time. As a matter of fact, we're going to wrap up here, and then I'm pretty much just going to dive onto my Twitch channel. So you can catch me right the hell now, I guess.
You can follow him right now. And actually, guys, there is links in the description as always, so make it real easy for you. You can go click. I think I got got a couple of them over there. Twitter and Twitch and YouTube, maybe.
Yep. Got all the big ones. It's all good.
Yeah. From there, they should be able to spread out and stalk you throughout the interwebs.
Yes.
Hey, you said you were doing Monster a Day. Are they branded?
Yeah. I did. That was on Instagram, and then I put it up on Facebook. I was doing it on Instagram stories. I think I got like 22 of them done.
Oh, cool. But they are branded?
I don't think I put my brand on them specifically. I think I'll check.
Killing me. I want to steal them, but I prefer to steal them when they're already branded.
Right? I mean, I'll you know what I'll send you like a PNG, and you can just drop the alpha of the logo and plaster it in the corner. Okay, cool. That works. Because the way people don't understand, saying that social media is such a pain in the ass. Oh, it totally is. It is a pain. It is so much. I do not have enough stats for all of the social media.
I shared some cool animation thing someone did, and someone ran it. This is the blah 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 time. This has been shared without attribution, and I'm like,
you know what?
Just click share, man.
If I'm setting something up that is, if you could misconstrue it as me having been the one who made it, then it needs attribution. But if it's coming from a position of, hey, I found this on Pinterest, let me repin it, or hey, I found this tweet, let me retweet this, I think it's pretty obvious that I do not have the talent to do any of these things.
Yeah,
and
this was something that somebody else clearly re-uploaded, and that's what I found. And I'm like, oh, this is cool, and I just shared it, and then I got that.
And if you're not claiming it and you're not monetizing it, and you know so if they were like, hey, please take that down, that's mine, and your responsible is going to be, hey, yeah, screw you, right? There's a difference between being a dick and sharing something. If I think it's cool, I definitely want the guy who made it to get credit. But if I can't find it, I can't find it.
I just wish everyone would brand their stuff and make my life easier.
Yep.
That's the real solution in this day and age. Like, everything's going everywhere. The easiest thing you can do is just put a watermark on it.
That's what I started doing with my my quotes from the game table that I upload to Instagram. We take like a quote wall of just the stuff that has been said at the table, and some of it is downright ridiculous. And we take it out of context. We just slap it in an image, and then I put all my stuff at the bottom of it. And we upload it to Instagram. And people like words in pictures for some reason. I don't know. They
do like the words in the pictures. But anyway, I want to thank you for hanging out with us. I want to thank everyone who's been in the chat hanging out with us. Greatly appreciate all you guys. It's been fun. And hopefully you get even more subscribers and followers over on Twitter. You definitely deserve it. Your stuff has a great production value, and that's really what caught my eye. I'm like, these things don't match. And then I said, then I followed you over Twitch. I'm like, oh, you do more Twitch than anything. So that's probably part of it.
Well, I'm glad to show up. I will shoot the shit anytime.
Cool.
I am absolutely. I was hyped. Oh my god! I told you dropped me the invite to the show, and I turned around and Jen was sitting on the couch. She was working from home on her laptop, and I was like, Nerdarchy wants me on their show, and she just like stopped and stared at me for a couple seconds, like, what?
What's a Nerdarchy? What's that?
She knows Nerdarchy. She follows my show, and so she was very interested to see all the other people doing it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, no, she knew who the hell you were.
I just assume nobody knows who we are.
Hey, I'm the one with 800 subs, okay?
I know.
But no, thanks for having me. I'm glad. I also hope that I get a lot more subscribers.
Yeah, me too.
I also think I deserve them. I'm just,
Sometimes, like, people kind of, I guess, like, we get this response, and it makes me feel like we like only look for like a certain level of having guests on, but more than anything, just like, just let it be someone who's not going to bore the fuck out of me for an hour.
Dude, if you need entertainment for an hour, anytime, you give me like an hour's notice, and I will be fine. Like,
you're good, man. You're good. You got an open invitation. Come back anytime you want. I've enjoyed having you on. Thanks, and thank you everyone else. So I guess until next time, guys. Stay nerdy.
Adios.